The widowed count's baby wouldn't stop crying on the train until a single mother did the unexpected. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. Louis had been crying for so long that no one remembered when it had started. The sound filled the first-class carriage, high and desperate, ricocheting off polished wood and velvet seats. Every new shriek seemed sharper than the last. Crystal glasses on the small tables trembled with each tremor of the rails and each sob of the child. Count Alexandre Beaumont held his son in his arms as if the boy were both treasure and torment. "Hush, Louis," he murmured for the 100th time. "You are all right. You are with Papa. Hush now." Louis arched his back and wailed harder. An attendant in a spotless uniform hovered near them, clutching a small cloth toy shaped like a horse. "Perhaps this, Monsieur le Comte. He liked it a moment ago," she said, her smile already cracking at the edges. "He threw it, Madeleine," Alexandra replied through clenched teeth. "At your face, if I recall." She gave a nervous laugh. "Babies have no aim, monsieur. They only have feelings." Louis's crying climbed another note, thin and piercing. The gentleman across the aisle sighed loudly and lifted his newspaper higher, as if it could shield him from the noise. Two ladies in hats trimmed with feathers whispered behind gloved hands. "This is unbearable," one muttered. "Poor man," the other said. "But honestly, one must think of the other passengers." Alexandra heard. He pretended he had not. The train swayed as it cut through the French countryside, but he barely saw the fields outside the window. His whole world had shrunk to his son's hot, damp weight and the sound of his cries. "He has been at it since Lyon," the gentleman behind the newspaper said, not bothering to lower it. "Surely there must be a nurse on this train." "There is no nurse," Alexandra replied, his voice low. "There is only me." Madeleine took a step closer. "May I try again, monsieur?" Only for a moment, Alexandra surrendered the baby with visible reluctance. Louis's tiny fists flailed as he changed arms. Madeleine bounced him carefully, murmuring nonsense in a sing-song voice. There, petit ange. Look at the horse, look, it trots, it flies, see, no tears now." Louis shrieked in answer and knocked the cloth horse from her hand. It skidded under a nearby seat. A young man bent to retrieve it, gave it a half-hearted attempt, then sat back without it when his gloved fingers met only empty air. "Perhaps," another attendant said, approaching with a small bottle. "He is hungry again. We warmed some milk." "He refused it," Alexandra said. "Twice." "He could be ill," one of the ladies murmured. "An infection of some sort. You should see a doctor as soon as you arrive in Paris, monsieur. A private one, of course." "As soon as we arrive," Alexandra repeated. "If we arrive," he thought. Louis gasped between sobs, his breath hitching. Panic tightened Alexandra's chest. He reached for his son again. "Give him back to me. He will cry himself sick like this." Madeleine handed the child over with obvious relief. Her hands trembled. "I am sorry, monsieur. We have tried all we know. Perhaps he senses the motion. Some children cannot bear trains." "Some grown men cannot bear them either," the gentleman muttered. The train plunged into a short tunnel. For a moment, the world outside turned black. Louis's cry, echoed in the enclosed space, seemed to fill every corner of the carriage. When they emerged into daylight again, it had not lessened. Alexandra pressed his cheek against his son's hair. "You must stop," he whispered, "for your own sake, for your throat, for your lungs. Please, my boy, please." Louis cried on. Exhaustion burned behind Alexandra's eyes. He had not slept properly in months. Not since. No. He did not let the memory of his wife's pale face rise. Not here. Not now. Not with strangers watching. But it came anyway. Jeanne on a white bed, her hair damp with sweat, a newborn wailing in the nurse's arms. The doctor's voice low and tense. The silence that followed. "Monsieur," Madeleine's voice cut through the memory. "If you wish, I can ask the conductor to see whether there is any doctor aboard. Sometimes we have one in third class, even if he does not admit it." "Thank you," Alexandra said. "Do so." She hurried away, grateful for an order. Any order. Louis squirmed, pushing against his chest, as if he wanted to escape his arms. Alexandra adjusted his hold, swaying in time with the rhythm of the rails. "Do you remember your mother, little one?" he murmured without thinking. Is that why you cry, because you know something is missing? The baby's only answer was another escalating howl. Outside, the countryside rolled past. Villages, fields, a church steeple. Inside, time blurred. Minutes or hours, it was impossible to tell. The air in the carriage grew heavy and close. Even the clink of cups on saucers in the next compartment sounded strained. At last, the door at the end of the carriage slid open. Madeleine returned, breathless. "There is no doctor, monsieur, I am sorry. Only a pharmacist, and he refuses to prescribe anything without seeing the child properly, on firm ground." "Reasonable of him," the gentleman behind the newspaper said. "Unlike some parents, he knows his limits." Alexandra's jaw tightened. "My limits are no concern of yours, monsieur." "They become my concern when they are screamed into my ears," the man replied, folding his newspaper at last. He was middle-aged, with a pinched mouth and sharp eyes. "Or perhaps I am the only one who values peace on a train." "There is nothing I would value more," Alexandra said quietly. "For him, if not for you." The attendant from the dining car appeared with an apologetic smile. "If the baby allows it, Monsieur le Comte, may I offer you some tea? It might soothe your nerves." "Thank you," Alexandra said, "but unless you can put it in his bottle, I do not think it will help." Louis rubbed his fists against his eyes and cried on. A woman in a dark blue dress sighed from across the aisle. "If you do not know how to calm him, you should hire someone who does," she said. "A nurse, a wet nurse, perhaps. Men should not travel alone with infants. It is not natural." Her companion nodded. "A count, is he not? Surely he can afford proper help." Alexandra forced himself not to answer. He fixed his eyes on Louise's tear-streaked face and rocked him gently, as he had seen nurses do in the past. His arms ached. His head throbbed. The sliding door at the far end opened again. This time, it was not an attendant. A young woman stood in the doorway, a small child asleep on her shoulder. Her dress was plain, carefully mended at the hem. The shawl around her shoulders had seen better days, but it was clean and neatly arranged. Her hair was gathered at the nape of her neck, a few strands escaping along her temples. She looked tired, but there was a steadiness in her eyes that cut through the noise of the carriage. One of the attendants moved toward her at once. "You cannot be here, mademoiselle. This is first class." "I know," the young woman said. Her voice was soft, modest. "I am only passing through to reach the other carriage. Second class is crowded." She had nearly reached the door on the opposite side when Louis let out a particularly loud shriek. The sound made her pause. Her gaze, drawn against her will, turned toward Alexandra and the struggling child in his arms. Their eyes met across the carriage. He saw in that brief instant not pity or irritation, but concern. Real concern. For the child, not for her own comfort. Her own little girl stirred, disturbed by the noise, and lifted her head from her mother's shoulder. She could not have been more than 3. She blinked up at the crying baby, then at her mother. "Maman, bébé pleure," she said in a sleepy whisper. "I hear him, Emilie," her mother replied. The attendant at her side tugged at her sleeve, impatient. "Come, mademoiselle, you will disturb the gentleman." "The baby is already disturbing the gentleman," the woman said with a hint of a smile. She looked back at Alexandra. "Monsieur, forgive me. Has he been crying long?" "It feels like an eternity," Alexandra answered before he could stop himself. "Since Lyon," the man with the newspaper added pointedly. The young woman shifted Emilie to her other hip. May I try something?" she asked. "Only if you wish it, of course." Madeleine bristled. "Mademoiselle, that will not be necessary. We have everything in hand." "With respect," the young woman said gently. "You do not." She looked again at Alexandra. "May I, monsieur? I have some practice." Alexandra hesitated. She was a stranger, a woman from second class with no chaperone carrying a child. Everything about the situation was irregular, improper according to every rule his mother had ever hammered into him. But Louis's crying swallowed every rule. "What is your name?" he asked. "Claire Dubois, monsieur." "Madame Dubois?" one of the ladies asked, arching an eyebrow. "Mademoiselle," Claire corrected quietly. A faint rustle of disapproval swept through the carriage. Single with a child. The words did not need to be spoken. Alexandra felt the judgment in the air like a draught. "Very well, Mademoiselle Dubois," he said. "If you believe you can help, you may try." Madeleine made a small sound of protest, but he did not look at her. Claire stepped down the aisle, careful not to jostle Emily too much. As she drew near, Louis's cries faltered for a fraction of a second, as if the new presence had surprised him. Then he resumed, furious and tired. "Poor little one," Claire murmured. "Your throat must hurt." She stopped in front of Alexandra. "May I take him?" she asked. "He is heavy," Alexandra warned. She smiled, and in that smile there was something quiet and sure. "I am used to heavy, monsieur." He shifted Louis toward her. The baby resisted at first, clinging to his father's lapel, but then Claire's arms closed around him, firm and secure. She lifted him, pressing him gently against her shoulder, her hand supporting his small back with the ease of long practice. "Shh," she whispered. "You are safe. Hear the train? It sings. Listen." She began to hum. The melody was simple. No opera, no salon piece. Just a humble lullaby, the kind sung in narrow kitchens and small rooms, where mothers rocked babies beside stoves that smoked in winter. Louis's sobs, so high and constant a moment before, softened almost at once. The carriage went very still. The crying did not stop completely at first, but it changed. The harsh, breathless shrieks became broken sobs, then long sighs. Claire swayed gently with the movement of the train, as if she and the carriage were in agreement. Her voice wrapped around the child like a blanket made of sound. "There now," she whispered between notes. "It is only the rails, only the wind. You are all right." Louis's fists unclenched. One small hand grasped a fold of her dress, bunching the worn fabric in his fingers. His head nestled against the hollow of her neck, searching for warmth. His breathing slowed. In less than a minute, the impossible happened. Silence. Louis's eyelids fluttered once, twice, then settled. His mouth released a tiny hiccup of complaint, and then relaxed. He slept. Completely. The entire carriage seemed to let out a collective breath. "Dieu soit loué," someone whispered. "He was only overtired," one lady said quickly, as if she had known the solution all along. The gentleman with the newspaper stared over the top of his folded pages. "Well," he said, "that is surprising." Madeleine's mouth opened and closed like that of a fish suddenly brought to air. "How did you do that?" she blurted. "We tried everything." Claire did not answer at once. She adjusted Louis more comfortably in her arms, careful not to disturb his sleep. Her own daughter, Emily, watched from the seat where an attendant had gently set her, her small legs dangling, her eyes wide. "He needed arms that were not afraid," Claire said quietly at last, "and a voice that believes he will calm instead of fearing that he will not." Alexandra had not realized he was holding his breath until then. He exhaled slowly. "Thank you," he said. His voice sounded rough to his own ears. "I do not know how to express my—" "There is no need, monsieur," Claire interrupted, a little embarrassed by the attention. "Any mother would have done the same." "You are not his mother," one of the ladies pointed out. "No," Claire agreed. She looked down at Louis. "But at this moment, he does not know that. He only knows that he is held, and that someone is singing for him." A strange ache tightened Alexandra's throat. How many times had Jeanne sung? How many times had she dreamed of this very journey to show their boy Paris? She had never set foot on this train. She had never seen her son's face. "I am deeply in your debt, Mademoiselle Dubois," he said. She shifted her weight, adjusting to the rocking of the carriage. "It is nothing, monsieur. Truly. I must go back to my place now. Emily cannot stay here." At that, Louis stirred as if her words had reached him, his small fingers clenched in her dress again. "Perhaps," Madeleine said quickly, eager to prove her usefulness. "Perhaps monsieur will take him back now that he is asleep." Claire looked at the baby in her arms. "If we move him too soon, he may wake," she said. "We cannot have a second-class passenger lingering in first class," the lady in blue remarked, however charming her intentions. "As if she carried some disease," the gentleman muttered under his breath, not quite defending Claire, but not fully attacking her either. The carriage door opened once more. This time it was the ticket inspector. He was a tall man with a neat mustache and the air of someone who had long ago given up being surprised by anything passengers did. He walked down the aisle, asking for tickets in a firm, neutral voice. "Your ticket, monsieur." "Madame." "Thank you." "And yours, mademoiselle." He reached Claire's seat, where Emily now sat swinging her feet above the floor. The little girl handed him a crumpled second-class ticket with great seriousness. "Very good, mademoiselle," he said with a hint of a smile. Then he turned to Claire, who still stood near Alexandra, Louis asleep in her arms. "And yours, mademoiselle?" She flushed. "It is in my pocket, monsieur, but my hands are occupied." "I will get it," the attendant offered, reaching toward her skirt. "No, thank you," Claire said quickly, shifting Louis with care so she could free one hand. She fumbled for the ticket, managing at last to produce it. The inspector took it, glanced at it, and his brows drew together. "This is a second-class ticket," he said. "Yes," Claire answered. "My daughter and I are in second class." He looked from the ticket to her, then to the richly dressed passengers around them, then to Louis in her arms. "This is first class." "I know," Claire replied, keeping her voice level. "I was only—" "She was helping me," Alexandra cut in. "My son was inconsolable." She calmed him. I asked her to remain a moment. The inspector's expression did not soften. "Regulations exist for a reason, Monsieur le Comte," he said. "The classes must not mix. If every second-class passenger came wandering in here with some excuse—" "Are you comparing this situation to a stroll?" the gentleman with the newspaper asked. "So you have heard the child. The woman is a miracle." "That may be," the inspector said, "but miracles do not alter the price of tickets." A few passengers chuckled. Claire's cheeks burned. She lowered her gaze to Louis's sleeping face. "I will return at once, monsieur," she said to Alexandra. "Thank you for understanding." She shifted her hold, preparing to hand Louis back. The movement was gentle, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. His little face scrunched. A tiny warning sound escaped his throat. "No," Alexandra said abruptly. "Leave him, he will wake." "Then she must go without the baby," the lady in blue said. "Surely you do not intend to keep her here indefinitely, monsieur." "She is disturbing no one," the gentleman objected. "Unlike the child a short time ago." "It is a matter of order, monsieur," the inspector insisted. "If we allow exceptions, there will be no peace. Mademoiselle Dubois must return to her place." His tone hardened. "Now." Claire took a breath. "I do not wish to cause trouble," she said. "Truly, I will go." She tried again to transfer Louis into his father's arms. As soon as his body left her warmth, his mouth opened in a silent, gathering complaint. His fists tightened. His eyes fluttered on the verge of waking. Alexandra felt panic rise. "Wait," he said. "Surely we can—" "Monsieur le Comte," the inspector said, "I must insist. The company has rules. If you wish a nurse, you must hire one properly and seat her where her ticket allows. This young woman cannot remain in first class. If she refuses to return to her carriage, I will be obliged to call the conductor and remove her." The carriage seemed to constrict around them. The murmurs grew louder. Claire froze, Louis halfway between her and Alexandra, the infant's face beginning to redden with the first signs of a fresh cry. "I am not refusing," she whispered. "I only do not wish him to wake." "And I do not wish the rules to be broken," the inspector replied. "You will go now, mademoiselle, or I will fetch the conductor at once and settle the matter before everyone's eyes." He straightened, waiting, his hand already reaching toward the door handle, and for one raw second Alexandra realized that he had no more time to hesitate. He would either publicly defend this stranger who had soothed his child, or he would let her be humiliated and dragged away. While Louis's next wail rose in her absence, Alexandra did not think. If he had paused, he might have heard his mother's voice in his head, might have calculated consequences. Instead, he heard only Louis's growing whimper and saw Claire's face tense and pale. "That will not be necessary," he said, his tone sharper than before. "Mademoiselle Dubois will remain." The inspector turned. "Monsieur le Comte, you do not understand. Her ticket—" "I understood you perfectly," Alexandra cut in. "I am telling you she is my guest. She is assisting me at my request. If you wish to question that, you may take it up with the company's director in writing. In the meantime, she stays." The carriage fell silent. The inspector opened his mouth, then closed it again. This was not how matters usually went. He glanced at the other passengers, searching for support, but found only curiosity and a hint of anticipation. "Very well," he said at last, stiffly. "If she remains, it is under your responsibility, monsieur. But I must mark in my report that I advised." "Mark whatever you like," Alexandra replied. "You have my name." He did not raise his voice, but something in it ended the discussion. The inspector gave Claire a long, cool look, then inclined his head, more to the Count than to her, and moved on down the carriage, calling for tickets in the next compartment. The murmurs started as soon as the door slid shut. "A guest," he says, "with a second-class ticket. And a child out of wedlock, no doubt. Perhaps he is lonelier than we thought." Claire heard every word. Her cheeks burned, but she kept her arms steady around Louis. The baby, still pressed against her shoulder, did not stir. His sleep was complete, unaware of the storm he had caused. She raised her eyes to Alexandra. "You should not have done that," she whispered. "It will cause trouble for you." "I am already in trouble," he said. His mouth twitched in something that was not quite a smile. "My son prefers your arms to mine. There can be no greater humiliation for a father." "That is not true," she said quickly. "He is simply... He senses your worry, perhaps. Babies feel everything." "And what do they feel in you, Mademoiselle Dubois?" he asked. She looked down at Louis again. "I suppose they feel that I am used to being worried," she said. "They recognize it and are not afraid." He watched her for a moment as if measuring that answer. "Please sit," he said then. "You cannot stand all the way to Paris with both children." "I should not take your seat, monsieur. It is mine to offer." He shifted aside, creating space on the bench next to him. Madeleine, still looking bewildered, quickly lifted Emilie from the other seat and settled the little girl beside her mother. "There, ma toute petite," Claire murmured. "Sit nicely. Do not pull on your dress. Remember what I told you." "Yes, maman," Emilie said, suddenly shy under so many strangers' eyes. She folded her hands in her lap with great effort, though her feet could not keep from swinging. Claire lowered herself carefully beside Alexandra. Louis still nestled against her shoulder, his small breaths warm on her neck. The shape of him there felt almost too natural, as if she had held him 100 times already. For a few blessed moments, the carriage was quiet. The wheels clicked on the tracks. Someone coughed. A servant passed with a tray of tea and pastries, careful not to jostle anyone. "May I bring something for you, monsieur?" "For the lady," the servant asked. Alexandra glanced at Claire. "Would you like some tea?" She hesitated. The idea of tea served in fine porcelain among these people felt unreal. "If it is not too much trouble," she said. "2 teas," Alexandra ordered, "and some milk for the children." "Milk is for paying customers," someone muttered, not quietly. Alexandra looked over. "I shall pay," he said, "for everyone's milk, if that will keep them from complaining." A small ripple of laughter broke the tension. The servant nodded and disappeared. Claire lowered her voice. "You do not need to defend me, monsieur. They are right. I am out of place here." "Perhaps," he said, "but so am I." She turned to him, surprised. "You? You are in first class, traveling in comfort. You belong here more than anyone." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "My wife died a year ago," he said simply. "Since then, nothing has felt like a place where I belong." The directness of it shocked her. Most men of his class avoided such raw admissions. Her own griefs had never been spoken about so plainly by anyone but herself. "I am sorry," she said, and meant it. He nodded once, eyes on Louis. "Were you traveling to Paris for family?" he asked. Claire's fingers tightened on Louis's back. "No," she said. "For work, I hope. If I can find it." "And the child's father?" The lady in blue cut in, leaning toward them, her curiosity too sharp to restrain. "Does he await you there?" The question sliced through the fragile peace. Claire's jaw clenched. She kept her eyes on her hands. "No," she said. "Is he dead?" The lady persisted. "No," Claire answered again. "Ah," the woman said, in a tone full of meaning. "Then he never existed." A soft titter of laughter circled the carriage. "Madame," Alexandra said, "that is enough." "I only speak what everyone thinks," she replied. "We live in dangerous times, monsieur. Young women traveling alone, accepting invitations, carrying children with no husbands in sight. One must call things by their names." Claire felt Emilie shift closer to her, seeking reassurance she could not give in that moment. "I made a mistake," she said quietly, loud enough to be heard but steady. "I pay for it every day." "That is all, madam. You may call it whatever you like." The lady sniffed. "At least you admit it." "What would be the use of denying it?" Claire said. "My daughter is not invisible, nor do I wish her to be." Her voice shook slightly at the end. She swallowed, forcing the emotion down. "Emilie," she added gently, "do not listen to the grown-ups. Look at the window. See the cows? The little girl pressed her nose to the glass, obedient but uneasy. Those are very small cows, maman, she said after a moment. They are far away, Claire replied. Things seem small when they are far away. And people? Emily asked. Do people seem small too? There was a faint, uncomfortable silence. Sometimes, Claire said, sometimes they do. The servant returned with a tray, breaking the tension. Tea for Monsieur and Mademoiselle, he announced. Milk for the children. He set the cups carefully. The porcelain felt too fine in Claire's hand. She cradled it as if it might crack. Thank you, she said. Emily drank her milk eagerly, leaving a white moustache on her lip. Louis slept on, oblivious. Time moved. The sky outside shifted from bright to pale, then toward the gold of late afternoon. The train stopped at small stations, let people on and off, shuddered, resumed its pace. Alexandra and Claire spoke in low tones when the carriage allowed. You must have family somewhere, he said once. Parents? Siblings? My parents are gone, she replied. My older brother, he has his own family to feed. Another mouth would sink them. For my sister-in-law, I'm a bad example. She prefers that I stay away. And your daughter? He asked, glancing at Emily, who was now drowsy and leaning against her mother. Does she know about her father? She knows he is not here, Claire said. What more is there to say? She asks sometimes. I tell her he was not ready to be a father. It is true, even if it is not the whole truth. He considered that. And are we ever ready? He asked more to himself than to her. I had a title, a house, money, a wife. When Louis was placed in my arms, I felt as lost as any boy. You stayed, she said. That is the difference. His eyes met hers. Yes, he said softly. I stayed. A whistle sounded. The train began to slow. Next stop, Madeleine announced. Villefranche. We take on new passengers here. The gentle calm Claire had carved out for herself in that compartment began to crumble. New passengers meant new eyes, new judgments, or perhaps worse, familiar ones. The train slid into the station, screeching. Smoke drifted past the windows. On the platform, people bustled, calling to one another, porters shouting, luggage piled. Louis stirred at the change in rhythm, then settled again. Claire unconsciously tightened her hold. The carriage door opened. A breath of cooler air entered, along with a rustle of skirts and the low murmur of the conductor's voice welcoming important travelers. The attendants straightened as if an invisible hand had yanked their spines upright. Madeleine smoothed her apron. She has arrived, she said under her breath. Who? Claire asked. The Dowager Countess Beaumont, Madeleine whispered back. Monsieur le Comte's mother. Claire's stomach dropped. She had not thought of his family. Of course he had one. Men like him did not fall from the sky. They had roots, names, expectations. An older woman appeared in the doorway, framed by two attendants. She was not tall, but she carried herself with such rigid grace that she seemed to fill the space. Her hair was white, arranged perfectly under a dark hat. Her gown was sober, her jewelry discreet, but unmistakably expensive. Her eyes, sharp and pale, took in the carriage with one sweeping glance, assessing and ranking everything she saw. Mother, Alexandra said, rising. Alexandra, she answered, offering her cheek. You look tired. It has been a difficult journey, he said. Louis, where is he? She cut in, scanning the seats. Here, came a small whisper from Claire's arms. The dowager's gaze landed on her. For a heartbeat, her face registered only confusion at seeing a strange young woman in plain clothes seated beside her son, a baby asleep against her shoulder, a little girl at her side. Then the confusion hardened into something else. Who is this? She asked, each word precise. Alexandre opened his mouth. This is Mademoiselle Claire Dubois, he said. She has been a nurse, the dowager interrupted. No, Claire said quickly. I am not. You are not a nurse, the older woman repeated. Her eyes travelled over Claire's dress, the mended hem, the worn shawl. You are clearly not a relative. Your clothes say so. Yet you sit in first class with my grandson in your arms. How very curious. Her voice was not loud, but every person in the carriage heard it. Claire forced herself to stand, careful not to jostle Louis. Madame la Comtesse, she said quietly. Forgive me. Your son's child was inconsolable. I happened to pass by. By chance I was able to calm him. That is all. I was about to return to my place in second class. Second class, the dowager repeated. Of course. She glanced at Emily, who was now standing, gripping her mother's skirt, brown eyes wide. And this? The dowager asked. This one is yours, I suppose. Yes, madame, Claire said. No ring, the dowager observed. No husband present. No chaperone. Yet you travel with 2 children, one of whom is my grandson. Tell me, Mademoiselle Dubois, do you expect gratitude for this coincidence? Mother, Alexandra said, a warning in his voice. Please, she ignored him. I expect nothing, madame, Claire said. Her voice was low but did not tremble. I only did what I would hope someone might do for my daughter, in a moment of distress. Your daughter, the dowager said. And where is her father? Silence closed around them. Claire looked at the floor. He is not with us, she said. Is he dead? The dowager asked. No, Claire replied. Then he chose to abandon you, the older woman concluded, yet you parade his mistake through the country for all to see. And now you sit here, in first class, holding the child of a noble house. Do you understand how this appears? I did not ask to sit, Claire said. Your son— My son is too soft-hearted, the dowager said crisply. He always was. A count cannot afford to be sentimental. He must think first of his name. Mother, Alexandra began. Hush, Alexandra, she said, without looking at him. You have already humiliated yourself enough for one journey. Allow me to repair what can still be repaired. She turned back to Claire. You will give me my grandson, she said, at once. Claire hesitated only because Louis slept so soundly. If I move him too abruptly, he will cry again, she said softly. Then he will cry, the dowager replied. It is preferable to the spectacle of seeing him clinging to the dress of a stranger whose reputation is clearly in question. The words hit like a slap. Claire swallowed. I have done nothing dishonorable, she said. You have a child and no husband, the dowager said. In our world that is all the dishonor required. Color rose in Claire's cheeks. Her fingers tightened around Louis for half a second, purely instinctive, before she forced them to loosen. I do not belong to your world, madame, she said. I belong only to my daughter and to whatever work I can find. I did not seek this. It found me. Indeed, the dowager said coolly. And we shall unfound it. She extended her arms toward Louis. Give him to me. Then return to your proper carriage. I will speak with the conductor to ensure there is no further confusion. Claire looked at Alexandra. He stood very straight, his face unreadable, his hands clenched at his sides. He could have spoken then. He could have said, Mother, stop. She is my guest. She helped me. She stays. He said nothing. Claire lowered her gaze. Carefully she transferred Louis into the dowager's arms. The baby murmured, rubbed his face against his grandmother's shoulder, then settled again. Years of experience with infants showed in the older woman's steady hold. Surprising, the dowager murmured. He does not protest. Perhaps he is not as attached to you as you believed, Mademoiselle Dubois. Claire said nothing. Take your child, the dowager added, and go. Emily clung to her mother's skirt. Maman, she whispered. Did we do something wrong? No, Claire said quickly. No, my love. We are simply moving. She bent, scooped up the few things she had set on the floor, her small woven bag, Emily's worn doll. Her hands shook more than she liked. Madeleine stepped forward, guilt flickering in her eyes. I will escort you, mademoiselle, she said. Second class is through the next 2 carriages. That will not be necessary, the dowager said. The inspector will see to it. The less familiarity, the better. The inspector, who had remained near the door sensing trouble, snapped to attention. Of course, Madame la Comtesse. He opened the door with stiff courtesy. Claire straightened. For a brief second, she allowed herself one last look at Louis. His lashes rested on his cheeks, his mouth slightly open, utterly peaceful. Goodbye, little one, she whispered, so low no one else could hear. Grow well. She turned toward the door. Emily pressed to her side. As she did, something small and cold slipped from the neckline of her dress. She heard the faint metallic sound before she felt the lightness at her throat. Her hand flew to her chest. The locket was gone. It lay on the floor between her and Alexandra, a tiny gleam on the polished wood. She froze. He bent at once and picked it up. "It is mine," she said quickly, stepping forward. "Please." He did not return it immediately. The locket was simple, worn by time, its surface smooth from years of being touched. But when he turned it in his fingers, he saw the faint engraving on the back, a small crest, elegantly worked, the lines delicate but unmistakable. His breath caught. He knew that crest. On the polished floor of the carriage, the locket gleamed in Alexandra's hand like a small accusation. He turned it with his thumb, tracing the delicate lines of the crest, the tiny shield, the crown, the curling vines around it. He had seen that emblem on invitations, on carriages, on the corner of a newspaper illustration. The Valmont crest. Claire watched his face. "Please," she said quietly. "It is mine." He lifted his eyes to her. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Her hand tightened on Emily's shoulder. "It was given to me," she said. "By whom?" "A gentleman," she replied. "A long time ago." The dowager's gaze sharpened. "What gentleman?" she demanded. "From which family?" Claire's chin lifted slightly. "That is my concern, madame," she said. "Not yours." The older woman's lips thinned. "You dare to answer me so?" she asked. "I dare to ask for what is mine," Claire said more softly. "That is all." Alexandra closed the locket in his palm. "The crest on this," he said, "belongs to the House of Valmont." The name dropped into the carriage like a stone into water. Several passengers exchanged glances. Even the inspector straightened. The Valmonts were not just any family. Old nobles, powerful, close to the court, always mentioned in the papers. Claire did not speak. "Is that true?" the dowager asked. "You know someone from the House of Valmont?" Claire's throat worked. "Yes," she said at last. "I knew someone." "As a servant," the dowager pressed. "A seamstress, a laundress?" "As something else," Claire answered. "Once." The older woman's voice went cold. "So you flaunt the crest of a great house around your neck," she said, "while traveling second class with a bastard child, and now you cling to my grandson in front of everyone. Do you truly expect us to believe this is all coincidence?" Claire's cheeks flamed, but she did not shrink. "I expect nothing from you, madame," she said. "I expect only my locket back." She turned to Alexandra. "Please, monsieur," she repeated, "you have no right to keep it." Their eyes met. Something in her gaze, fear and pride mixed together, cut through the noise around them. He opened his hand. "You do not deny that this crest is Valmont's," he said. "No," she answered. "And the man who gave it to you means nothing now," she said quickly. "Not to you, not to anyone on this train. Only to me and my child. Give it back, and you may never think of it again." "That is not how such things work," the dowager said. "If you have meddled with the Valmonts, there may be consequences." "For whom?" Claire asked, suddenly sharp. "For me? I assure you, madame, I have already paid for every choice I made. No powerful name could save me then. It will not harm me now." The dowager opened her mouth to retort, but Alexandra lifted a hand. "Enough," he said quietly. His mother fell silent, surprised by the firmness in his tone. He studied the locket once more, then stepped forward and placed it in Claire's open palm. "It is yours," he said. "I have no right to it. Whatever story is behind that crest, it belongs to you." Her fingers closed around the metal like someone gripping a lifeline. "Thank you," she whispered. "Do not thank him," the dowager snapped. "He is being foolish. Names like Valmont's are never harmless." Claire slipped the chain into the bodice of her dress, hiding the locket's gleam. "May I go now?" she asked. The inspector cleared his throat, glad to return to rules he understood. "Yes, mademoiselle," he said. "Come, I will take you to second class." Claire nodded. She bent to pick up her bag. Emily clung to her skirt. "Say goodbye properly to Monsieur le Comte," Claire murmured. The little girl looked up at Alexandra. "Goodbye, monsieur," she said. "Thank you for the milk." "You are welcome, Mademoiselle Emilie," he replied, surprising himself with the warmth in his voice. "Travel safely." Claire did not trust herself to look at him for long. "Take care of your son, monsieur," she said. "He is a very sweet child." "He was screaming like a banshee not an hour ago," the gentleman muttered. Claire actually smiled. "Sweetness is not the absence of crying," she said. "It is what remains when the tears are done." Then she turned and followed the inspector down the aisle, her head high, her daughter trotting at her side. The door slid shut behind them. For a moment, all Alexandra could see was the faint sway of her skirt, the dark braid at her back, the small hand gripping her fingers. Then even that was gone. The dowager exhaled sharply. "Well," she said. "That was an unpleasant interruption. You are far too indulgent, Alexandra. These women scent kindness and swarm." She calmed Louis, he said, looking down at his sleeping son. "No one else could." She calmed him, the dowager agreed. "And then we learn she has a Valmont crest tucked into her dress and a child with no name. Do not be naive. Women like that exist to attach themselves to men like you." "She asked for nothing," he replied. "Yet," his mother said. "She asked for nothing yet." He did not answer, but he slipped his hand into his pocket, where the weight of the locket had just been. His fingers found only air. The absence felt oddly heavy. The train reached Paris in the early evening. The station was a blur of smoke and noise, of voices and wheels and whistles. Porters hustled, families reunited, strangers rushed past one another without a glance. Claire emerged from the second-class carriage with Emily perched on her hip and a worn valise in her free hand. Her body ached from the hours on the hard seat. Her ears still rang faintly with the memory of Louis's cries. The inspector, softened by some small remnant of conscience, pointed her toward the cheaper boarding houses near the station. "You will find a room there," he said, "if you have money." "I have a little," she answered. He nodded, already turning away to tend to other passengers. Paris loomed around her, grand and indifferent. The narrow street where she found a room smelled of coal smoke and cooking. Laundry flapped in inner courtyards. Children played in the gutter with sticks and stones, their shouts mixing with the calls of the vendors. The boarding-house mistress squinted at her over a ledger. "You have a child," the woman said. "Single?" "Yes," Claire replied. "People talk," the mistress warned. "But my rooms do not. Pay on time and we will have no quarrel." "I will pay," Claire said. "I can sew, I can wash, I can iron. I will work." The room was small, the bed narrow, the window draughty. Emily looked around, solemn, then spread her arms wide. "It is ours," she said. "Yes," Claire answered, hugging her. "For now, it is ours." Days blurred. In the mornings, Claire went out with a basket over her arm, climbing stairs, knocking on doors. She offered her services as a seamstress, a mender, a cleaner. Some doors slammed in her face the moment they saw Emily. "We do not hire women who bring trouble with them," one shopkeeper said, eyes sliding to the child. "What trouble?" Claire asked. He gestured to the girl. "Visible trouble," he said, and shut the door. Others were kinder, if not warmer. "You may take this to repair," a dressmaker said, handing her a gown with torn lace. "But I pay little, and I will not have that child in my shop." "It is fine," Claire said, forcing a smile. She will wait quietly at the boarding house. In the afternoons, she sat by the small window, needle flashing, stitching until her fingertips stung. Emily played on the floor with a thread spool, inventing games. "Maman," she asked one day, "will we see the baby again?" "Which baby?" Claire said, though she knew. "The one who cried on the train," Emily said. "Louis." Claire's hand faltered. "No," she said softly. "People like that do not cross paths with people like us twice." "Why?" Emily asked. "Because their roads are paved differently," Claire said. "They do not meet unless the world shakes." She did not notice that the world was, in fact, shifting elsewhere. In the Beaumont townhouse on a wide, quiet street, Louis's cries rose again. The child woke from naps with frantic sobs. He refused milk he had taken easily before. The nurses rocked him, walked him, sang to him, but nothing worked for long. "He misses the motion of the train," one nurse suggested timidly. "He misses that woman," the dowager said. "He will forget her." Alexandra paced. "He did not forget her voice on the train," he said. "That is because you fluttered about like a hen," his mother replied. "Children pick up agitation. Be calm, and he will calm." He tried. He failed. The nights were long. In the quiet hours when the house slept, he found his mind drifting back to the carriage, to the way Claire had held Louis, to the lullaby she had hummed, to the fire in her eyes when she demanded her locket back, and to the crest on its back, Valmont. He sent a servant to check the passenger list from the train. "Claire Dubois," the man reported, Second class. Ticket purchased in Lyon. Destination Paris. Address? Alexandra asked. There is none on the list, monsieur, the servant said. But I can ask at the station. Do so, Alexandra ordered. 2 days later, the servant returned with a crumpled scrap of paper. Rue des Tisserands, number 12, he said. A boarding house. The mistress remembered a young woman with a child who arrived 3 days ago. Alexandra hesitated only a moment. Then he took his hat and coat. His mother met him at the top of the stairs. Where are you going? She asked. I have business, he said. At this hour, she pressed. With a crying child upstairs? With the cause of his crying, he replied. Perhaps. Her eyes narrowed. Do not do anything foolish, Alexandra. Sometimes, he said, our ideas of foolishness and wisdom are not the same, mother. She watched him leave, lips pressed tight. Rue des Tisserands was narrow and noisy. Children darted around his polished boots. Women eyed his fine coat with suspicion and curiosity. The boarding-house mistress nearly choked when she saw him on her doorstep. Monsieur, she stammered, you must be lost. I am looking for Mademoiselle Claire Dubois, he said. I am told she has a room here. The woman's eyes flickered. Her hand tightened on the door. She owes no money, she said defensively. If you are a creditor, you may tell whoever sent you that she works hard. She is honest. I am not a creditor, he said. I am someone she met on the train. Recognition sparked. The Count, the mistress breathed. They did talk. He frowned. She has mentioned me. Only to say that your child cried, the woman said. She did not boast. She is not that sort. She is in her room. 3rd floor, last door on the left. Mind your head on the stairs, monsieur. They were not made for men as tall as you. He climbed, the air growing closer with each flight. At the last door on the left he paused, then knocked. A pause. The faint scuffle of small feet. A whisper. Then Claire's voice, cautious. Who is it? Alexandre Beaumont, he said. Silence. The door opened a crack. One brown eye peered out through the gap. Why are you here? She asked. He felt strangely awkward in the narrow hallway, his fine coat almost absurd. I needed to thank you properly, he said, and to make you an offer. I told you on the train, she said. There is no need for thanks. There is, he replied. May I come in for a moment? She hesitated, then glanced back into the room. Maman, Emily whispered. Is it the baby's papa? Yes, Claire said. She opened the door wider. The room was small, the ceiling low. Sunlight through the single window fell across a bed, a chair, and a table crowded with sewing. Emily stood near the bed, clutching her doll. Alexandra took in the scene at a glance. Poverty, but neat, clean. No smell of stale drink or neglect. Only the underlying scent of soap and boiled cloth. You are well? He asked. As well as one can be, she said. We have a roof. I have work. What more is there? Less hunger, he answered. Less worry. She gave a faint smile. Those are luxuries in our world, she said. Why are you here, monsieur? He did not waste time. Louis is not well, he said. Since the train, he has been more difficult. He cries more. He refuses the bottle. None of the nurses can calm him as you did. Her eyes softened. I am sorry, she said. He is a sensitive child. Yes, he said. You calmed him. That was chance, she objected. Twice, he said. On the train, and again when the dowager arrived. That is not chance. She looked away. What are you asking, monsieur? She said quietly. He took a breath. I wish to employ you, he said. As Louis's nurse. She stared. You do not mean that, she said. I do, he answered. You would live in my house. Care for Louis. Be paid properly. Your daughter would come with you. Live in your house, she repeated. A single mother, with a child whose father no one mentions. This is Paris, he said. People always talk. Let them. They will not talk about you, she said. They will talk about me. They will say I have trapped you, that I am after your name, your money. They will say my daughter is... She stopped. He finished for her, quietly. They already say those things, he said. Whether you live in my house or not. She flinched. Why would you do this? She asked. Out of guilt? Gratitude? Out of concern for my son, he said, and respect for you. You calmed him when no one else could. You did not ask for anything in return. That alone makes you more trustworthy than most." She shook her head. "You do not know my story," she said. "The crest on the locket belongs to the Valmonts," he said. "Yes, I know. I also know their reputation. If one of them wronged you—" She looked up sharply. "What would you do?" she asked. "Whatever is within my power," he said simply. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Your power and his are not the same," she said. "Dukes do not tremble at counts. Sometimes they do," he said, "when the right truth threatens to reach the wrong ears." She studied him. "You are asking me to step into a lion's den," she said, "with my child. I am offering you shelter," he countered, "a salary, a home, education for Emily when the time comes." Her gaze flickered at that word. "Education," she repeated. "Yes," he said, "whatever she wishes to learn, languages, music, anything within my reach." Emily tugged at her skirt. "Maman," she whispered, "will there be a garden?" He smiled faintly. "Yes," he said, "there is a garden." Claire looked from him to her daughter, then back. "You do not ask about my mistake," she said, "about what I did or did not do." "It is not my place," he answered. "I see you work. I see you love your child. I see you did not force yourself into my carriage. That is enough." "You will have enemies under your own roof," she warned. "Your mother." "My mother will have to adapt," he said. "She may not wish to," Claire replied. He shrugged. "Then she will be unhappy," he said. "She has been unhappy for years. One more reason will not break her." Despite herself, Claire smiled. "You speak lightly," she said, "but the cost may not be light." "I know," he said. "I have had time to think of nothing else." Silence stretched. "Say yes," Emily whispered, almost inaudible. "Please, Maman. I liked the baby." Claire closed her eyes for a second. Poverty or risk? Narrow rooms or a house full of judgment? Fear in the street or fear behind high walls? Neither path was easy, but one path held a garden. "On one condition," she said finally. "Name it," he replied. "Emily must live with me," she said. "In the house, not in some other building, not sent away." "Of course," he said. "And if one day I decide it is too much," she added, "if the whispers grow too loud, if your family becomes too cruel, you will not stop me from leaving." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "If you choose to go," he said, "I will not chain you. I will only try to persuade you to stay." She looked at him a long moment. "Very well," she said. "I accept." He exhaled, relief loosening his shoulders. "Then pack what you have," he said. "I will send a carriage tomorrow." "There is not much to pack," she answered with a small smile. "We can be ready in an hour." The next day, the Beaumont townhouse opened its doors to 2 new residents. The servants gathered discreetly to watch as Claire and Emily stepped into the marble-floored hall. Murmurs ran among them. "Her? From the train? The child too?" The housekeeper, Madame Girard, gave Claire a courteous nod. "Welcome, Mademoiselle Dubois," she said. "Monsieur le Comte has instructed that you be given the green room near the nursery." "Thank you," Claire replied. Emily clung to her hand, eyes huge. "Is this all one house?" the little girl whispered. "Yes," Claire said. "Do not pull on your dress, and remember to say please." Their room was simple but comfortable. A small bed for each, a chest of drawers, a washstand. The window looked out onto the garden. "Maman, trees," Emily breathed. "Yes," Claire said, hoping the tightness in her chest was happiness and not fear. Her work began at once. Louis, when she first saw him again, stared at her for a long moment, as if unsure whether she was real. Then he reached for her with both hands. "You see," Alexandra said quietly. "He remembers." Claire lifted the child. "Hello again," she murmured. "Causing trouble, are you?" Louis burbled and buried his face in her shoulder. The nurses watched, a mix of relief and resentment on their faces. "At least we can sleep," one whispered to another that evening. "If she is to take the nights." The dowager's reaction was less forgiving. "You did what?" she demanded when Alexandra told her. "I hired her," he said, "as Louis's nurse." "Without consulting me," she snapped. "You bring a fallen woman into this house, give her access to my grandson, and you think I will just nod?" "She is not a danger," he said. "She is the only person who has brought him peace." She has already attached herself to one noble name, the dowager replied. Now she will attach to another. It is a habit with such women. She has asked for nothing but work, he said, and a roof for her child. For now, his mother answered, but she could not deny the evidence. Within days, Louis's crying eased. He still fussed, still woke, but Claire's presence soothed him faster than anyone else's. She learned his patterns, his sounds. She knew when he needed food and when he needed only to be held. She balanced him on one hip, while folding small shirts with the other hand. She played on the nursery floor with both children, rolling a ball back and forth, laughing when Louis toppled gently onto his padded backside. Servants passing by the door often slowed to watch despite themselves. She does not act like a nurse, one maid said. More like a mother, another finished. Not everyone was charmed. Whispers wound through the house. The kitchen table was the court of opinion. A woman with a child of her own, no husband in the Count's house, a footman said. It is asking for scandal. And that locket, a maid added, with the Valmont crest. I heard she keeps it under her dress. How do you know what she keeps under her dress? Another teased. The maid flushed. I only saw the chain, she said. But Madame la Comtesse knows. She is not pleased. The dowager's displeasure soon found an outlet. One afternoon, she visited her own suite and discovered a silver hairpin missing from the dressing table. It was not particularly valuable, but it was personal. She rang for Madame Girard. Someone has been careless, she said. Or worse. The housekeeper grew pale. I will question the maids at once, madame, she said. Begin with the new girl, the dowager said, the one with a questionable history. Temptation follows hunger. Madame Girard ventured, Mademoiselle Dubois has not been in your rooms. Have you watched her every second, the dowager asked, or that child of hers? Children have quick fingers. The housekeeper said nothing. The rumour spread faster than any official inquiry. By evening, the servants' whispers had reached the nursery walls. Claire noticed it first in the way conversations stopped when she entered a room, in the way two maids avoided meeting her eyes, in the sudden, stiff politeness of Madame Girard. What is it? She asked the housekeeper quietly after dinner. Everyone is looking at me as if I had grown horns. Madame Girard hesitated. I should not repeat gossip, she said. It is poison. The poison is already in the air, Claire answered. Tell me its name. The dowager lost a hairpin, Madame Girard said. She wonders if someone has taken it. There are many someones in this house, Claire replied. Yet everyone looks at me. You are new, the housekeeper said gently. People are quick to judge what they do not know, or what they think they know, Claire said, thinking of the train. Her hands shook as she folded a small blanket. I have stolen nothing, she said. I believe you, Madame Girard said, but my belief is not the one that matters. Has Monsieur le Comte heard this? Claire asked. I do not think so, the housekeeper said. Not yet. Claire looked at the sleeping children. Louis curled in his crib, thumb near his mouth. Emily on her narrow bed, doll tucked under her arm. I will not have them grow up in a place where whispers follow us like shadows, she said. You have only just arrived, Madame Girard said. Give it time. Time will not erase the crest on my locket, Claire replied, or the absence of a ring on my finger. This house will always see what it wants to see. That night, after everyone had gone, she sat by the window of the green room, the locket in her hand. She opened it as she sometimes did when doubt pressed too hard. On one side, the tiny crest. On the other, a curl of baby hair, light brown, the exact shade of Emily's. You are worth more than any pin, she whispered, more than any name. The decision formed slowly, then all at once. She could not stay. The next afternoon, while Louis napped and another nurse watched over him, she began to pack. It did not take long. A few dresses, a shawl, needles and thread, Emily's doll. The valise looked as it had the day she arrived, no fuller, no lighter. Are we going on another train? Emily asked when she saw. No, Claire said. We are going away. That is all. But I like it here, the little girl protested. There is a garden. And Louis. Claire's heart squeezed. I know, my love, she said, but this house does not like us as much as we like it. Sometimes we must leave places before they push us out. She waited until evening, when the dowager was in her own rooms and the house quieter. She dressed Emily in her cloak and tied her bonnet. "We must say goodbye," the child said. "No," Claire replied. "Goodbyes make it harder. We will slip away like a shadow. It is kinder to everyone." She took the valise in one hand, her daughter's fingers in the other, and stepped into the corridor. Her footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor as they descended the grand staircase. The hall seemed even larger now, the ceiling higher, the door farther than before. At the bottom she paused for one last look around. The portraits on the walls, the gleam of the banister, the faint scent of wax and flowers. "Remember this," she murmured to Emily, "so you know it was real." They walked toward the great front door. Claire's heart pounded against her ribs. Each step felt heavy and light at once, like walking in a dream. She reached for the handle. The door swung inward before she could touch it. She stumbled back, pulling Emily close, as a man stepped over the threshold framed by the fading daylight and the silhouette of a waiting carriage behind him. He was tall, impeccably dressed, his hair touched with grey at the temples, his face handsome in a hard, polished way. His eyes swept the hall with the easy arrogance of someone used to entering grand houses without question. Then his gaze dropped and collided with hers. He froze. "Claire," he said, the name escaping him before he could stop it. Her breath hitched. "Your Grace," she whispered. "Duke de Valmont." Behind her, Emily peered around her skirt, her small face suddenly visible, and the Duke stared at the child who carried his own eyes. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The hall held them all like a breath taken and not released. Claire with her hand clenched on the valise handle, Emily half hidden behind her skirt, the Duke de Valmont standing in the doorway with rain damp on his coat and disbelief in his eyes. Then he recovered himself. "Madame," he said, as if greeting a casual acquaintance. "What an unexpected encounter!" He stepped inside. The footman at his back closed the door, shutting out the street noise. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound. Claire's fingers dug into the worn leather of the valise. "Your Grace," she answered, her voice very steady. "I did not know you were expected." "One does not announce every visit," he said lightly, "particularly when one is among friends." He glanced around, taking in the portraits, the staircase, the Beaumont crest above the archway. "Old friends?" he added. "Then we should not stand in the doorway," a drier voice cut in from the stairs. Alexandra descended, one hand on the polished rail. "Your Grace," he said, stopping midway, "you are early. My mother expected you later." "I finished my affairs sooner than planned," the Duke replied smoothly. "I trust I am not inconvenient." His eyes slid back to Claire. "On the contrary," Alexandra said, "you arrive at a most clarifying moment." Claire's heart hammered. She forced her feet to move. "If you will excuse me," she murmured. "Emily and I were just leaving." The Duke's gaze sharpened. "Leaving?" he repeated. "So soon after arriving in such a comfortable nest? That seems unwise. Paris can be very inhospitable." He took a step closer. The faint scent of his cologne tapped at old memories she wished were dead. "Allow me to offer an opinion," he said quietly. "You should stay where the roof does not leak." "I have survived worse than rain, Your Grace," she replied. "I will continue to do so." Emily tugged at her skirt. "Maman," she whispered. "Is he the man from the locket?" Claire swallowed. "Go back upstairs," Alexandra said, his voice calm but carrying. "Both of you." Claire looked up at him. "I have no right to command you," he said, meeting her gaze. "But I will ask. Please, take Emily to the green room." "And leave you here?" she asked. "With him?" "I'm not a child," Alexandra said, "and this is my house." The Duke's smile thinned. "Your concern for your employees is touching," he said. "She is more than an employee," Alexandra answered evenly. "She cares for my son." "Ah, yes," the Duke said, glancing at Emily again, "and no doubt she does it well. She has experience." The implication hung in the air. Claire's stomach twisted, but she lifted her chin. "Come, Emily," she said. "We will go upstairs." The little girl clung tighter. "I do not like him," she whispered, not softly enough. The Duke's jaw ticked. "My child," he said, "it is unwise to speak so plainly in grand houses. People prefer pretty lies." Emily pressed her face into her mother's skirt. "She prefers truth," Claire said. "As do I." She turned away, guiding her daughter toward the stairs. As she passed Alexandra, he touched the valise lightly. You will not need this, he murmured. We shall see, she whispered back. In the green room she paced. Who is he? Emily asked at last, sitting on the bed with her doll. A man who gave us nothing but a locket, Claire answered, and thought it a generous gift. Is he my— Yes, Claire said quickly, but he is also a stranger. Do you understand? Emily nodded slowly. I do not like him, she said again. You are wiser than I was, Claire replied, a bitter smile touching her mouth. Downstairs the dowager had joined the men. She stood rigid near the hearth, hands resting on the back of a chair. Your Grace, she was saying, you honor us. I apologize for this confusion in the hall. Our new nurse has not yet learned her place. On the contrary, the Duke said lightly. She seemed ready to leave it. Alexandra poured wine with steady hands. Mother, he said, I would like a word with His Grace alone. The dowager turned. Is that necessary? She asked. We have much to discuss together. What I have to discuss with him is best handled privately, Alexandra said. I promise you will be informed. The Duke's brows lifted, amused. Your son has grown, he remarked to the dowager. I am curious now. So am I, she replied. Very well. I will await dinner in the salon. Do not keep me waiting long. My patience is not endless. She left with a rustle of skirts. The moment the door shut, Alexandra crossed to it and turned the key. The soft click sounded louder than it should have. The Duke laughed. Is this an interrogation, Beaumont? He asked. Should I prepare to be tortured with cutlery? This will be a conversation between two men, Alexandra said, one of whom owes a great deal more than he has paid. The Duke's smile thinned. You speak in riddles, he said. I do not enjoy games played without rules. Then let us set some, Alexandra replied. He set one glass of wine on a small table, kept the other in his hand. Rule 1, we speak plainly, no half-truths, no evasions. You propose honesty in Paris, the Duke said dryly. How novel. Alexandra did not smile. He reached into his coat and took out a folded sheet of paper. I had a copy made, he said. The Duke's gaze flicked to the page. What is that? He asked. A record, Alexandra said. From a household in Lyon. A maid dismissed 3 years ago from the home of the Duchess de Valmont's sister. No reference provided. A small purse given instead. No reason stated, but strongly implied. The Duke's hand tightened on the back of the armchair. Servants' histories bore you now, he asked. Only when they intersect with mine, Alexandra said, and with a woman who now lives under my roof. You do choose curious company, the Duke remarked. I do now, Alexandra said. I suppose I tired of the sort that leaves ruin behind and calls it amusement. You speak as if you have been wronged, the Duke said. I assure you, my amusements do not usually involve counts. They involve girls barely out of childhood, Alexandra replied, and children they abandon. The Duke's eyes hardened. You tread dangerously close to insult, he said. No, Alexandra said quietly. I am already there. He leaned forward. Claire Dubois, he said. You know the name. Do not pretend otherwise. For a moment the Duke considered lying. It showed in the flicker of his gaze, the tightening of his jaw. Then he shrugged. Very well, he said. Yes, I knew her. Briefly. Years ago. She was agreeable. She was a maid in your family's service, Alexandra said. She believed your promises. Everyone believes something at some point, the Duke replied. Your point, Beaumont. She bore your child, Alexandra said. She was dismissed, alone, with nothing but a locket and the weight of your name on her shoulders. That is my point. The Duke took a sip of wine. You speak as if this is unusual, he said. If we were to draw up lists of such incidents in every noble house, we would run out of ink. Then perhaps it is time ink was used, Alexandra said. At least in this case. The Duke's gaze sharpened. What do you want? He asked. A confession? An apology? Both are cheap. I prefer to save my money for things that matter. I want you to assume responsibility, Alexandra said. Quietly if you prefer, but genuinely. The Duke laughed, incredulous. Responsibility, he repeated. You speak like a priest. I speak like a father, Alexandra said. You have a daughter, whether you acknowledge her or not. She exists. She eats, learns, feels. She asks questions. She deserves more than a life lived as a stain on her mother's name. The Duke set his glass down with a sharper sound than necessary. "What do you propose?" he asked. "A legal agreement," Alexandra said, "drawn by my lawyer, signed by you. It will state that a certain sum is set aside for a girl's education and dowry. The document will not mention names publicly. It can be sealed, but one copy will be held by Claire, another by my lawyer, a third by yours. Should you fail to honor it, I will see that the contents become more widely known." The Duke gave a low, incredulous whistle. "You would risk a scandal?" he asked. "You? So careful, so proper, Beaumont? The man whose mother worships appearances?" "My mother will not like it," Alexandra said, "but she does not guide my conscience." "And your own reputation?" the Duke pressed. "A child's future weighs more," Alexandra answered. The Duke paced a short line, then turned back. "You threaten a duke with blackmail," he said, "over one maid and her brat." Alexandra's jaw tightened. "She is a woman," he said evenly, "and the child is yours. You may call my method blackmail if you like. I call it persuasion suited to the times we live in." The Duke held his gaze for a long moment. At last he exhaled. "You surprise me, Beaumont," he said. "I did not think grief could produce such iron." "Grief has stripped me of many illusions," Alexandra said, "including the one that says we may ruin lives without consequence as long as we do it quietly." The Duke walked back to the table, lifted his glass, then set it down again untouched. "How much?" he asked. "Enough to guarantee she never stands at a boarding-house door begging for work again," Alexandra said. "Enough for schooling, for a small dowry someday. I will let my lawyer set a figure. He is fair." "And you expect me to trust your lawyer?" the Duke retorted. "Then add your own," Alexandra said. "I have no objection." The Duke rubbed his temple. "If I refuse?" he asked. "Then I invite Claire to tell her story where it will hurt you most," Alexandra said. "To your wife, to your political allies, to the newspapers if it comes to that." "You would drag her through that?" the Duke demanded. "Do you think she would enjoy being the subject of public gossip?" "No," Alexandra said, "which is why I hope you are not foolish enough to test me." The Duke stared at him, then began to laugh, though there was no amusement in the sound. "Very well," he said at last. "You win this round, Beaumont. Draw up your agreement. I will review it." "You will sign it," Alexandra corrected. The Duke inclined his head in mock salute. "You have teeth," he said. "I had not noticed." He moved toward the door. "One more thing," Alexandra said. The Duke stopped. "You will not approach Claire or her daughter without my permission," Alexandra said. "No private visits, no secret gifts, no sudden interest. If you wish to see the child at some future point, you will ask through me." The Duke's eyes glittered cold. "Do you intend to adopt my mistakes along with my obligations?" he asked. "I intend to protect them," Alexandra replied, "from you as much as from anyone else." For a moment, the air between them felt sharp as glass. "Very well," the Duke said softly. "Enjoy your guardianship, Beaumont. It may prove heavier than you think." "It is already heavy," Alexandra said. "But I carry it by choice." Later, in the green room, Claire sat on the edge of the bed, her valise still by the door. A knock sounded. "Come in," she said. Alexandra entered. Emily was asleep now, cheeks flushed, hair spread on the pillow. The locket glinted faintly at Claire's throat. "You did not leave," he observed. "There was little point," she said. "I would only have exchanged one kind of danger for another. At least here the roof is sound." "And the lions visible," he said. "Yes," she replied. "That helps." He remained standing. "I spoke with him," he said. "With the Duke." Her hand tightened in the fabric of her skirt. "What did he say?" she asked. "What you would expect," Alexandra answered, "that you were agreeable, that such things happen, that ink is precious." "And you?" she asked. "I told him ink would be used," he said, "for your sake, for Emily's." She swallowed. "You should not have involved yourself," she whispered. "His anger will spread to you." "I am already entangled," he said, "by my own decision. You live in my house. Your child plays in my nursery. There is no halfway path now." She looked at him fully then. "What have you done?" she asked. "Arranged an agreement," he said. "Your daughter will have a sum set aside, for schooling, for her future. It will be formal. You will hold proof." "And the price?" she asked. "The price is his peace of mind," Alexandra replied. He prefers to pay. And yours? She pressed. He smiled faintly. I lost peace of mind a long time ago, he said, when Jeanne died. Since then I have made do with purpose. Her eyes stung. You did not need to do this, she said. We would have survived. Poorly perhaps, but we would have survived. I know, he said, but surviving is not the only aim worth chasing. Silence fell between them, not heavy, just full. He will never acknowledge her publicly, she said at last. No, Alexandra agreed, but you will not need his name to walk with your head high, nor will she. She nodded slowly. Thank you, she said. The words felt small compared to what he had done. He stepped closer. Claire, he said. She felt his nearness like a change in weather. Yes, she answered. There is another matter, he said. Less urgent than legal papers, perhaps, but important to me. Her pulse quickened. What matter? She asked. He took a breath. When you arrived, he said, I thought only of relief. My son slept in your arms. For the first time in months, the house felt less haunted. He glanced at Emily, then back at Claire. In the weeks since, he went on, I have watched you patch shirts, soothe nightmares, endure whispers. I have watched you refuse to bow your head when you had every reason to hide. I have heard you laugh with the children. I have seen Louis reach for you before anyone else. She tried to speak, but nothing came. I told myself it was gratitude, he said. Then respect. Then a simple fondness born of proximity. He shook his head. It is more than that, he said quietly. I find myself listening for your step in the corridor. I measure my days by the sound of your voice in the nursery. When you are troubled, I cannot rest. When you smile, the house seems to breathe easier. This is not friendship alone. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Do not say things you will later regret, she whispered. I have held my tongue long enough, he replied. Perhaps too long. Claire, I love you. The words hung in the small room, simple and impossible. She stared at him. You cannot, she said. I do, he answered. You loved your wife, she said. Yes, he said, and I still honor that love. It is not a candle snuffed to make room for another. But grief taught me how precarious life is. I refuse to pretend my heart has turned to stone because she is gone. She looked down at her hands. People will say I trapped you, she murmured. That I set my sights on a title and refused to let go. People say many things, he replied. They said Jean married me for rank. They said she died because she was too frail. None of it was true. They will gossip whether I marry a duchess or a laundress. I prefer to marry for reasons they cannot see. The word hung between them. Marry, she repeated weakly. Yes, he said. I am not asking you for some hidden arrangement. I ask you to be my wife, to stand in the light, not the shadow. Her throat closed. Think, she managed. You are a count. I am an unwed mother with a scandal tied to her neck. Your mother will never forgive it. Society will condemn you. Louis will grow up surrounded by whispers. Emily will be pointed at. They already whisper, he said. They already point. This way, at least, they will not be pointing at you as prey, but as someone under my protection. You should not have to protect me, she said. I want to, he replied simply. She pressed her palms together to stop their trembling. I care for you, she said, more than I should. Your kindness to Emily, your courage with the Duke. I would be lying if I said my heart was untouched. Hope flickered in his eyes. But, he asked. But my fear is larger than my courage, she said honestly. I have been judged and cast aside once. I carry the scars still. The idea of stepping willingly into a life where every eye waits for me to stumble. She shook her head. I do not know if I am strong enough, she whispered. He did not argue. I would be lying if I said I could shield you from every cruel glance, he said. I cannot, but I can stand beside you when they come. I can refuse to let their words define you. I can show Louis and Emily that love matters more than gossip. Tears blurred her vision. You make it sound simple, she said. It is not simple, he replied. It is only clear. He took a step back, giving her space. I will not press you for an answer now, he said. You have carried enough weight today. Think. Ask whatever questions you wish. Shout at me if it helps. I will listen. And if I say no, she asked, His face tightened, but his voice stayed gentle. "Then you will remain in this house as long as you choose," he said, "as Louis's nurse, as Emily's mother. With the same respect and protection I offer now, my feelings will not turn to contempt, because they are not returned as I hope." "You would bear that?" she asked. "I would rather live near you in disappointment," he said, "than far from you in ignorance." She laughed through her tears. "You speak like a man in a novel," she said. "Perhaps grief has made me theatrical," he answered, "but my meaning is plain." He moved to the door. "Rest tonight," he said. "We will talk again when the storm inside you has settled a little." "Will it?" she asked. "It may never," he admitted, "but even storms pause between gusts." He opened the door, then paused. "Claire," he said. "Yes," she whispered. "Whatever you decide," he said, "know this. You have changed this house. You have changed me. That will not be undone." He left quietly, closing the door. Claire stood in the center of the small room, the locket warm against her skin, her daughter breathing softly on the bed, and for the first time in years, her heart felt pulled not only by fear of the past, but by the fragile hope of a different future she had never dared to imagine. Sleep did not come easily that night. Claire lay awake in the narrow bed, listening to Emily's soft breathing and the distant creak of the old house. Her mind circled the same questions until they tangled. "He loves you." The thought made her heart quicken and her stomach twist at the same time. At some point she drifted into a shallow doze. Morning came too quickly. "Maman," Emily whispered, poking her arm, "it is light. Louis will wake soon. We must go." "Yes," Claire said, pushing herself up. "We must go." She dressed on habit alone, braided her hair, fastened the locket at her throat. Her fingers paused on it for a moment, then dropped. In the nursery, Louis saw her and broke into a gummy smile, arms flapping. "Ma," he announced, his latest sound for her. "You see," one of the nurses said, half amused, half wounded. "He has decided. You are Ma now." Claire scooped him up. "I am whatever he needs," she said, kissing his forehead. The morning moved from one small task to another, feeding, dressing, settling quarrels over a toy horse. But beneath everything, Alexandra's words pulsed like a hidden drum. "I love you." Near midday, Madame Girard appeared in the doorway. "Claire," she said, "may I borrow you a moment?" Claire handed Louis to the nurse. "Play nicely, you two," she said to the children. "Do not knock each other over. I will be right back." In the corridor, Madame Girard studied her face. "You did not sleep," the housekeeper observed. "No," Claire admitted. "He spoke to you," Madame Girard said. "Last night." Claire's eyes widened. "How do you know?" she asked. "A woman with my years learns to read the air," the housekeeper replied. "The Count looked like a man who had walked through fire and not decided if it was worth it. You look like someone who stood close enough to feel the heat." Claire let out an unsteady breath. "He asked me to marry him," she said. Madame Girard did not gasp. She only nodded, as if confirming a suspicion. "And what did you say?" she asked. "I did not," Claire replied. "My tongue refused. My fear spoke louder than my heart." "And now?" Madame Girard asked. "Now they are shouting at each other," Claire said. "My fear lists all the gossip, all the looks, all the dangers. My heart points at Louis's laugh, at Emily's joy here, at him." Madame Girard folded her hands. "When my husband asked me," she said, "I said no the first time." "You?" Claire asked, surprised. "Yes," the housekeeper said. "He was a stable boy with nothing but rough hands and a crooked smile. I had seen too many men promise forever and give only a winter. I said no because I was afraid of being a fool." "What changed?" Claire asked. "One day I realized something simple," Madame Girard said. "He was the only man whose absence made the days feel longer, even when they were full of work. I decided I would rather be a fool with him than safe without him." "Were you a fool?" Claire asked. "Constantly," the woman said with a small smile. "But I was also happy." Claire laughed despite herself. "You know this is not the same," she said. "He is a count, I am—" "A woman," Madame Girard finished. "A mother, a person who has suffered and still stands. Titles are loud, but they do not keep a bed warm at night or comfort you when tears come." Claire chewed her lip. "And his mother?" she asked. "She will hate me." "She may," Madame Girard said. "For a while, perhaps longer. But I have seen her look at you when she thinks no one notices. Her eyes are not as hard as her words. Claire frowned. When does she look at me kindly? She asked. When you do not see, Madame Girard said. When you wipe Louis's face without flinching at his mess. When Emily offers him the last apple slice. When you stand straight in front of her and refuse to lie about your past. She despises weakness, not mistakes. Claire absorbed this quietly. You must decide, Madame Girard said, but remember, saying no will not make your heart quieter. It will only give it a different kind of pain. She squeezed Claire's arm and left her alone in the corridor. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. At dinner, the dowager spoke of nothing but social calls and letters, her tone crisp. The Duke's name did not cross her lips. The seat reserved for him remained empty. A brief message had arrived that he was unavoidably detained. Alexandra's gaze met Claire's once across the table. He did not press. He did not speak. But his silence was not cold. It was waiting. That night, when Emily slept, Claire did not go to bed. She slipped down the corridor and into the small chapel tucked near the back of the house. A single candle burned before the carved figure, more wax than Saint Visible. The air smelled faintly of stone and old prayers. Claire sat on a bench. I am not good at words, she whispered into the quiet. Not for heaven, at least. I have wasted many on men who did not deserve them. She folded her hands anyway. You know what has happened, she said. You saw me on the train. You heard the gossip when my belly grew. You know every name they have called me. I have tried to keep my daughter safe. That has been my only compass. She took a shaky breath. Now there is this man, she went on. He is kind when he could be cruel. He is brave when it would be easier to look away. He offers us a place we never thought we would have. And I am afraid. Tears slid down her cheeks. I am afraid of happiness, she admitted, because I do not know if I deserve it, because I do not know how to carry it without waiting for someone to snatch it away. She stayed there until her tears dried. When she rose, her decision had not made the fear vanish. It had only stepped in front of it. Morning came again. She found Alexandra in the garden, as she often did, standing beneath one of the bare-limbed trees while the children toddled between the paths with a nurse trailing them. Louis burst into giggles when he saw her and toddled toward her, nearly tripping over his own feet. Ma, he called. Emily ran to her as well. Maman, look, she said, showing a half-crumpled flower. I found this. It was on the ground. Is it still beautiful if someone dropped it? Claire looked at the bruised petals. Yes, she said. Sometimes the ones on the ground have tried harder. Alexandra watched her with a quiet intensity. Claire, he said. Walk with me, she answered. They strolled a short distance along the gravel path, far enough that the children's voices faded to a soft murmur. She did not stop until they reached the bench near the old yew tree. He waited. I thought, she began, that perhaps if I stayed silent long enough, you would change your mind, that your grief would return and tell you that you spoke from loneliness, not love, that you would look at me one morning and wonder what madness had possessed you. And did that comfort you? He asked gently. No, she said. It hurt. He nodded once. Then say what you must, he said. I promise not to interrupt. She looked down at her hands, then up at his face. You were right, she said quietly. I cannot pretend I do not care for you. I have tried to keep my heart folded small, but it refuses. It grows when you enter a room. It stretches when I see you with the children. I have tried to push it back, and it refuses. Something like hope flickered in his eyes, but he stayed silent. My fear is still here, she said. It whispers that I will drag you down, that I will shame you, that the world will point and laugh and your name will be mud because of me. And your heart, he asked. What does it whisper? She swallowed. It whispers that perhaps we could be happy, she said, that perhaps the children could grow up in a home where no one is ashamed of how they came into the world. He took a slow breath. Claire, he began, but she lifted a hand. One condition, she said. If I say yes, if I become your wife, there will be rules in this house. His mouth twitched. Rules from the lady of the house, he said. Very well, I am listening. First, she said, there will be no whispers about Emily. Not from servants, not from family. If someone must gossip, they will do it far from her hearing and mine. She will grow up knowing only that she is loved. Whatever papers the Duke signs, whatever agreements exist, in this house she is simply Emily Beaumont in all but name. Agreed, he said at once. Gladly. Second, she continued, the same for Louis. No one will use the word orphan as a wound. His mother is gone, but he is not half a child. Agreed, he said again. Third, she said, voice softening, we will not allow our hearts to grow quiet around each other, even when life becomes nothing but schedules and responsibilities. If something is wrong, we will speak. I refuse to live in silence again. Agreed, he replied, his own voice roughening. And finally, she said, we will open our door to others who find themselves where I once was. A maid in trouble, a child with nowhere to go, a mother with no ring and nowhere to sleep. If we have space, we will not turn them away. His eyes warmed. That may scandalize my mother more than marrying you, he said. But yes. Agreed. She drew a breath that felt like crossing a bridge. In that case, she said, if you still wish it, yes. For a moment he did not move. Then he stepped forward very slowly, as if afraid that any sudden motion would shatter what she had just given him. Say it again, he murmured. Because I am a selfish man and want to be certain I did not imagine it. She smiled through the prickling in her eyes. Yes, she repeated, I will marry you. He let out a breath that sounded like something inside him finally loosening. Thank you, he said simply. He did not grab her. He did not sweep her into some storybook embrace. He only took her hands gently in his and brought them to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles with a reverence that shook her more than any wild gesture could have. From across the garden, Emily's voice piped up. Maman, look, Louis is trying to eat the flower. They both laughed, tears escaping with the sound. Then we had better save the garden from him, Claire said. Side by side, fingers still twined for a moment, they walked back to the children. The news reached everyone sooner than they expected. Madame Girard smiled behind her hand. I told you, she murmured when she passed Claire in the corridor. Better a brave heart than a quiet one. The servants whispered, of course, some with delight, some with disbelief. A count and a nurse, a footman said. Who would have thought? She was never only a nurse, a maid answered. Open your eyes. The hardest conversation waited in the dowager's sitting room. She sat very straight in her chair, every line of her body braced for a blow she had half expected and wholly dreaded. So, she said when Alexandra had finished, you intend to marry her? Yes, he said. You were always stubborn, she replied. I had hoped grief might have softened that. I see I was wrong. He did not apologize. She is worthy, he said simply. Worthy, the dowager repeated. Of you, worthy of herself, he answered. The rest is our concern, not hers. She rose and walked to the window, looking out at the garden. I watched her, she said unexpectedly. At first to find the flaw. I thought if I caught her in some lie, some greedy glance, I could pull you back from this edge. And? He asked. And I saw a woman who works until her hands ache, she said, who comforts a child not hers as readily as her own, who looked me in the eye on the train and refused to beg. That does not erase her past, but it says something about her present. She turned back, eyes bright with unshed tears. I am an old woman, she added softer. I have clung to rules because they were all that remained when everything else changed. I do not like being laughed at. I do not enjoy scandal, but I enjoy even less the idea of my grandson growing up in a house where love is considered a weakness. Alexandra's shoulders eased. So you will accept her? He asked. I will tolerate her, the dowager said. At first. Perhaps in time I will accept. Do not ask me for warmth overnight. The bones protest when they are forced to bend. It is enough, he said quietly. It must be, she replied. But when she asked Claire to call on her that afternoon, there was something almost fragile in her poise. They sat opposite each other, a small table with tea between them. You understand what you're doing, the dowager began. Marrying into this family. Yes, madame, Claire said. You will be judged, the older woman continued. Not just for who you were, but for every step you take now. If you stumble, they will call it proof that you never belonged. I know, Claire replied. The dowager studied her. And yet you still say yes, she said. Why? Claire thought of Louis's hands reaching for her, of Emily's laughter in the garden, of Alexandra's quiet eyes. Because I want a home for my children that is built on more than fear, she said. And because I love him. The dowager flinched at the word as if it were a bright light. "No pretty speeches," she muttered. "Just that." "Yes," Claire said. "Just that." The dowager sighed. "Very well," she said. "I will not call you that woman any longer. It is tiresome. We must find you a title." "Claire," Claire said softly, "my name is enough." "It is not for the world," the dowager replied. "But we will let the world choke on its own expectations for once." She stood and walked to a small cabinet, retrieving a silver rattle, its handle worn smooth by years of small fingers. "This was Alexandra's," she said, "from when he was Louis's age. I had it polished. I intended to keep it until I died. That seemed neat, orderly." She looked at the toy, then held it out to Claire. "Give it to the girl," she said. "Emily, she looks as if she would make it sing." Claire's throat tightened. "Thank you," she whispered. "Do not thank me," the dowager said briskly. "I'm not doing you a favor. I'm admitting that the child is already under my roof, whether I stamp my foot or not. Better to hand her a rattle than watch her steal one." There was humor in the words, brittle but real. The wedding was not the grand spectacle society might have expected. There were no crowded churches, no throngs of curious nobility. Alexandra insisted on something smaller, truer. They wed in the same chapel where Claire had cried her fears into the dark. The pews held only a few. Madame Girard seated beside the cook, two of the oldest servants, the dowager stiff but present, her hands folded tightly. The lawyer sat discreetly in the back, a packet of signed documents already safely tucked in his case, the Duke's agreement sealed and binding. Claire wore a simple dress, newly sewn by her own hands from a bolt of cream-colored fabric the housekeeper had quietly procured. Her hair was arranged more carefully than usual, but without jewels. The only ornament was the locket at her throat. "Should you not hide that on such a day?" someone had asked. "No," she had answered. "It is part of my story. I will not erase it." Emily walked ahead of her down the short aisle, clutching a small bouquet of garden flowers and looking solemn with importance. Louis, determined not to be left out, toddled beside her, one hand holding onto her skirt, the other carrying the silver rattle which he shook at irregular intervals. The soft chime of it echoed through the chapel. Alexandra waited near the front, heart pounding harder than it had the day he inherited his title. When he saw Claire step in, everything else, whispers, documents, titles, fell away. He saw only her. She reached him with a breath she barely remembered taking. "Hello," he murmured. "Hello," she replied. The ceremony was brief. The priest spoke of vows, of patience, of the quiet work of love. They repeated the words, not as strangers moving through a ritual, but as two people who had already begun the hard parts before the celebration. When it came time to exchange rings, Claire's fingers trembled as Alexandra slid the simple gold band into place. "This is not payment," he said softly, so only she could hear. "It is a promise." Tears blurred her sight as she took his hand and did the same. When the blessing ended, the priest announced them husband and wife. There was a small, stunned silence. Then Emilie let out a little cheer. "Maman is a countess," she whispered loudly. "Does that mean I am too?" "Not exactly," the dowager said, and to everyone's surprise there was laughter in her voice. "But you are something better. You are family." Back at the house there was no ball, but there was music. Madame Girard and the cook conspired to have a violinist from down the street come play in the salon. The servants, invited to join after their duties, hovered uncertainly at first, then relaxed, as Alexandra insisted they treat it as a true celebration. Claire stood near a window for a moment, watching Louis and Emily chase each other in circles on the polished floor. She felt a presence at her side and turned. The dowager looked smaller without her formal armor of distance. "I was wrong," the older woman said abruptly. Claire blinked. "About what, madam?" she asked. "About many things," the dowager replied, "but in this case, about trains." "Trains?" Claire repeated, confused. "Yes," the dowager said. "I thought nothing good could come from such a vulgar invention. Too fast, too many people pressed together, too much chance of collision." Her eyes slid to Louis and Emily, then back to Claire. "Perhaps I was mistaken," she finished quietly. Claire smiled. "Perhaps," she agreed. Later, when the last notes of the violin faded and the house had settled, Alexandra called softly from the doorway. "Come," he said. She followed him, curiosity pricking. He led her, and the children who refused to be left behind, to the waiting carriage outside. "Are we going somewhere?" Claire asked. "Yes," he said. "Not far. A small journey." "To where?" Emily demanded. "You will see," he said. The carriage rattled through familiar streets, then turned toward the station. Claire's breath caught. "The train," she murmured. "You met me there," Alexandra said. "Or perhaps I met myself there for the first time. Either way, it seems right that we visit it again." They did not board a grand long-distance express this time. Instead, Alexandra had arranged for a short trip to a small town just beyond the city, in a simple carriage with no separation of classes. Passengers came and went with little ceremony. A farmer with a basket of eggs, a young couple holding hands too tightly, a woman with a baby who stared curiously at Louis. Claire settled into the seat, Louis on her lap, Emily by the window. As the train jerked into motion, Louis tensed for a moment, memories of that first frightening ride flickering somewhere behind his dark eyes. Claire wrapped her arms around him. "It is all right," she whispered. "Hear that? The wheels are singing again, but this time we know where we are going." He looked up at her, recognized her voice, and relaxed with a little sigh, resting his head against her chest. Across from them, Alexandra watched them with a look that mingled wonder and contentment. "On that first journey," he said quietly, "I thought I was traveling alone with my son. In truth, I was barreling toward the rest of my life, and I had no idea. And I thought I was moving farther away from everything I had lost," Claire replied. "I did not imagine that a crying child would be the one to return something to me." Emily leaned her head on Claire's shoulder. "I like trains now," she announced. "They are noisy, but good things happen." "Sometimes," Claire said, smiling. "Not always, but sometimes." She looked out the window. Fields slid past, small houses. A boy running along a path, waving at the train as if it might wave back. She leaned her head lightly against Alexandra's shoulder. "I am still afraid," she admitted, voice low so only he could hear. "Not like before, but—" "Enough. So am I," he said. "Of different things. Of failing you. Of failing them. Of losing what we have built before it settles." She turned her face toward him. "What will we do with that fear?" she asked. He took her free hand, his thumb tracing a slow circle over her knuckles. "We will carry it together," he said. "Like we carry the children when they are tired. Between the two of us it will weigh less." She let out a breath that felt like letting go of a long-held rope. Outside, the world moved. Inside, the small carriage held a new, fragile stillness. Louis slept, lulled by the rhythm of the rails and his mother's heartbeat. Emily hummed a tuneless little song, tapping her heels against the seat. The dowager, miles away in the townhouse, sat by her window, and to her own surprise found herself thinking not of gossip, but of whether the children would be warm enough. As the train rolled on, Claire closed her eyes for a moment and let the motion rock her. Once the sound of wheels on tracks had meant only departure, another place where she would not belong. Now it sounded like something else, continuation, possibility. A life not scrubbed clean of pain, but woven from it and something gentler. She opened her eyes and looked at the man beside her, at the children in her care, at the countryside sliding by like pages turned in a book she finally wanted to keep reading, and understood that the baby who would not stop crying on a train had not just needed her arms. He had been, unknowingly, calling her home. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.